Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Welcome to the show. It's your girls, Lindsay and Krista. Thanks for being here. Been doing this 10 years, baby.
Excited to have you.
The new 2006 or the 2026 is the new 2016 trend. I was like, oh, you have no idea. We could throw down on that trend.
I think I was looking at the content that you were sharing for that as the example, and I was really taken aback
You're like, ooh.
by that time. I just can't believe that it was like 2016. I had just moved to LA, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we launched.
We launched in September 2016.
Okay, got it.
Yep. It was funny. I was going back on my phone to kind of see if I could participate in the trend or if we could. I have like no pictures from 2016. I don't know if I went and I wouldn't have deleted it.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what happened. It was like only some of the ones that from like photo shoots we did.
I think we're a culture now that documents and takes photos of everything. So I think it's sort of different generationally because in 2016, I wasn't on my phone that much. I didn't take that many pictures.
For sure.
Only of special occasions, only of nights out, and your cameras were so bad on your phone.
Yes.
So yeah, it was crazy. But I'm really excited about our conversation today. We have Jessie Inchauspé, the glucose goddess, the Queen Gigi, back on the show. I think this is her third time.
Yes.
And I'm so excited to be talking about her book, The 9 Months That Count Forever, How Your Pregnancy Diet Shapes Your Baby's Future. And as clocking in as the godmother of that baby, said baby, that inspired this book. So it's been a really beautiful process and journey to see her become a mother and to see her to become just an incredible, thoughtful, dedicated, loving, playful, grounded mother, and to see her family just completely change in such a beautiful way has been just such an inspiration. So for her to write this book and to share and help so many women understand how the food that they consume impacts their babies' lives forever is such a gift. And I'm so grateful that she's a steward of this information and message, because I do know that it can be hard at times to share health and wellness information to mothers and to mothers that be and women during this time, because it's pretty challenging time. So I think people are pretty easily agitated and triggered. So for her to do this and to really bring a lot of science and data around simple ways that you can support yourself and your baby that will impact them for the rest of your life is just, it's incredible.
Yeah, I really appreciate like the directness of this. And obviously that it's backed by so much research and science, but I just think so much of the fertility industry, pregnancy, postpartum, all the things is operating on kind of like an older narrative of like, you can eat whatever you want in pregnancy. Make sure you eat for two. Like, don't worry, just a lot. And listen, I never think you should be stressing yourself out over certain things to the point that it's affecting your health, and that will also affect your child, I believe. But I think to be informed, especially about nourishment during pregnancy, not only do I think it affects like your child, but like I feel like it affects your birth. I think it affects your ability to recover after. I think it affects your experience during pregnancy. There's just so much that I in my experience feel like it touched. So I'm really excited about this, and I think there's going to be more and more mainstream information coming out about that correlation. Because I feel like we've seen just like this crazy uptick in kids with whether it's like ADHD or like just different neurological disorders or like autoimmune or things like that. So just understanding how we can be proactive when they're in the womb, I think is just so powerful.
Yeah, the book is a science-based guide revealing how 4 key nutrients during pregnancy, choline, DHA, protein, and glucose, impact the baby's lifelong health and development. So that's what I think is so powerful about her work is she simplifies it. She's a master communicator and educator, and in the process making it really simple, where I've even left conversations with her where she's talked to me for 2 minutes and I'm like, okay, I've got to eat eggs when I'm pregnant. I got to make sure to have eggs. She eats like 5 eggs a day. Like I've seen her eat so many eggs when she's pregnant, so many eggs when she's had the baby. And it's really just like adds to your life. It doesn't scare you. It doesn't make anything feel like it's wrong with you. It's just like, hey, here's some research, here's some things that you can be doing, and just reminding ourselves that your baby is really created of the culmination of what you're feeding yourself. Like, it's not just from nowhere. Obviously, the spirit and the soul comes from somewhere, but it's like, it's it would only make sense to me that you'd want to be even more mindful, I think, when you have a child, of what you're eating. I think during first trimester, that's probably hard for people. I've heard
Yeah.
a lot of mixed things about what people want to eat and how sick and nauseous they feel.
The first trimester, though, too, is in terms of affecting development, a little less high stakes.
Oh, interesting.
So if we're talking like neurological development, obviously it starts, but there's research around, and I don't know the specific research, but I was looking this up like as I was kind of not feeling my best and not like feeling like I was eating my best. And it's more important in the second and third trimester.
Interesting as you get closer to.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So today during the conversation, we talk a lot about her new book. We talk a lot about her process in pregnancy, a lot of the data and research. And I think for anyone that has children or wants to have kids, I think this is perfect. For me, this is so helpful to just understand as a woman, as a woman that wants to bring life into the world, wants to support my friends in their pregnancies, wants to really see just a more healthy nation.
Mhm.
I think I'm really excited to dig in more. And yeah, this is a very close story to my heart because Jessie's so close to me. So I'm honored to have her on again. You can listen to other episodes with Jessie. You can search Glucose Almost 30, and there's 2 others that break down the hacks, that break down the science, that break down really easy ways you can support yourself in managing your glucose levels to feel more healthy and be more well on those other episodes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all so much for listening. Enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the other side.
What is your favorite music?
A gospel. That's my Spotify was like gospel and rap. What should
Should be a pastor.
I would love
Pastress.
to.
Pastress.
I
A
would love-
pastry.
A pastor.
Croissant.
I'm a pastor in my own mind. Oh, this is a little too close for me. What a dream and what a journey to have you here. It feels like surreal almost that this much time has passed, that you've been through your own process of pregnancy, having your baby, and I know you had miscarriage before, and it's such a gift to have you on. And I'm so grateful for this conversation. I'm so proud of you, seeing you write the book and work on the book and learning so much from you in the process. It feels so special to have you on the podcast. I know for me personally, I know for our audience who just loves you and adores you. And I'm excited for today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having me back.
Of
You're welcome.
course.
It was my dream. So I'd love to start with the personal story a little bit because it's personal to me and it's personal to you. And, when we kind of came together in Paris when I was visiting and you found out you were pregnant and then you had a scan.
Yes, I was pregnant. I had been pregnant for 3 months or so, I thought. And I told you, I'm having a baby and I'm getting my 3-month scan tomorrow, actually. And you were like, okay, cool. Well, let me know how it goes. I think you actually offered
I wanted
to come. You said, I should come with you. And something inside me was like, I don't think you should come. I don't know why, but I don't think you should come. And unfortunately, at that 3-month scan, I learned that I had what's called a silent miscarriage, meaning the embryo had stopped developing, but I had no signs. Usually when you miscarry, you bleed. And that's the sign. You're like, oh my God, I'm bleeding. This must mean the pregnancy is over. I had no idea. And so at the scan, the doctor was like, oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am, but the embryo stopped developing. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I had been carrying a dead embryo in me, thinking I was still pregnant for that long. And in these cases, I had to have what's it called?
DNC.
A DNC in English, yeah. So I had to go to the hospital and go under and have this whole process. And it all happened really fast. And it was just incredibly shocking to my nervous system, to my body, to the projection that my husband and I had made of when our family was going to start. I mean, it was so incredibly brutal. And it wasn't even in my consciousness that this could happen. Because I got pregnant really fast, second cycle that we tried. And I had heard of miscarriages from friends who had done IVF, but never in a million years did I think this was a possibility for me. And I wish I had been better informed. I wish I had known that this is why people don't tell pregnancies until the 3rd month. Literally, the day I got the positive pregnancy test, I told everybody. Everyone. I was like, oh my God, we're having a baby in December. So it was a big, big lesson for me. It was very humbling. And thank God you were there, Krista, because you were so helpful. You said something that really helped me. You said, you started a prayer, you said, may this passing be peaceful. And that was such a powerful sentence that you spoke. And it really carried me through probably the most difficult season of my life, honestly. It was so brutal. Yeah. So thank you.
What would you say to someone who's struggling, with miscarriage or that has had a situation like that happen?
That what you're going through is real. It's not because the baby is not visible yet. It's not because this is a natural thing that happens. Some people told me, oh, it's just nature doing its thing. Get over it. It's fine. Like, you'll get pregnant again. There's this kind of, I don't know if it's taboo or lack of education or just lack of emotional sensitivity, but there is a feeling that what you're going through is not real or that you should get over it quickly. Actually, what you're going through is very, very real. You've lost the idea of the baby. You've lost the pregnancy. And of course, the baby is still tiny. It's like, an inch, and it's not a baby that's been born. But nonetheless, you lose such a big part of yourself and of your life. And I think something else for me that was very powerful is that, so I got pregnant again 4 months after the DNC. That being said, for a long time, I thought I wasn't, quote unquote, allowed to be pregnant again until I had processed the grief from the miscarriage. I was telling my therapist, I was like, am I allowed to try even though I'm still sad? And I realized the grief from that experience will always exist. I'm probably never going to get fully over it. Like, it was so traumatic. And I had to allow myself to try again to be pregnant and to have that grief coexist.
Wow.
And then, to be honest, the pregnancy with my son was just very difficult because I was so anxious. Everything went perfectly fine. But man, that was a real trial of the heart. Because I was wondering, is this going to happen again?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I feel like, an experience like that can be, there can be so many thoughts about, did I do something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Just all of these, and at the end of the day, well, the body does have an intelligence, that is true, but like, we'll never truly know. And so how did you navigate, especially those first 3 to 4 months, kind of that like very sacred time that you felt in your first pregnancy, everything was going okay?
Well, honestly, all the joy was gone.
Yeah.
All the sense of being naive was gone. I was a wreck.
Yeah.
Before I probably had in the first trimester of pregnancy like 10 scans because I was so freaked out. I just kept going back to the doctor's office, and I would cry for 24 hours before each scan. I was in shock. I was in PTSD. I was so scared it was going to happen again. And then I would get a scan that was okay, and I'd feel okay for 24 hours, and then boom, the anxiety would come right back. So I did not have a magic wand. Like, I don't have a tool that will make this go away for someone. I tried everything. I had support. I spoke to my husband, to my friends, to people who had gone through the same thing, but I just had to get through it. Like, I just kept walking.
Yeah.
I love this saying, when you're in hell, no, when you're going through hell, just keep walking. I was like, I have no choice. I have to live with this emotional despair, and I just have to keep walking. It was so fucking rough. Yeah.
I think that's such a good point about, for a lot of women, I think in the process of trying or losing a baby or getting pregnant, there's so much of that expansion of feeling two things at once, feeling the grief and feeling the joy. And I think in motherhood, I'm not a mother yet, but I think it's such a good example of what happens a lot in motherhood. You're feeling so much excitement and beauty, and then also grief and terror, like, and so it kind of almost prepares you a little bit for that stretch. And I don't think it prepares you in a way that it's needed or necessary or good, but it's like there is so much complexity of emotional range when you're a mom. It's like just kind of brings you through the ringer. And I think only the experience of motherhood can make you feel that. So when you did find out you were pregnant again that second time and you were having baby, what was it like to be so anxious and kind of be grieving the process of losing the previous, but then also wanting to take care of your baby and wanting to love your baby and prepare your baby for a life that you are really excited to have?
Well, I was able to separate out the fact that emotionally it was very difficult, and I didn't even allow myself to feel a lot of joy until like 6 months in. Yet my scientist mind, and I'm a Gemini, so I'm pretty good at dissociating.
You like throw the mask on. You're like, time.
Like, okay, left brain, right brain. My other brain was like, okay, let's do it again. Let's look at all the science. Let's figure out all the cool stuff we can do to help our baby have all the nutrition that he needs in the womb. And so I was very excited by everything the science was teaching me, all the studies I had found. I had my little checklist of like what I needed to eat every day. So I think that helped me feel busy and feel like I was doing something, because you can't control whether you're going to have a miscarriage or not. There are things that have an impact on the risk, like your folate levels, your choline levels. But that being said, I did everything right. You know, I didn't smoke crack and have a miscarriage. Like I was doing all the right stuff. So I tried to do all the right stuff again. And I just had to sort of hope that this was going to work out. And if I had had a second miscarriage and a third, I would have gone back and done all these nutrition hacks again, because that's the stuff I could control. And it's nice in such an uncontrollable process to know there are things that are actually in your power. Because you guys know this saying of you have a bun in the oven when you're pregnant. Like I was told that, oh, you have a bun in the oven. How cool. But an oven is like this passive machine of heat and time. It does nothing. The oven doesn't decide what's being baked or cooked. It just waits. And I learned through the science that I was not just an oven. There were so many things I could do that would influence what kind of baby would come out. I could influence the wiring of his neurons in his brain. I could influence the set point of his metabolism. I could influence his muscle mass. I could influence his blood sugar levels in the womb. Like there were so many cool things to do.
You all know I love Revolve for when I need a really cool outfit for something, or even when I just want to refresh my basics. I'm a basics gal, but they have to be elevated, they have to be fresh. So I honestly don't look anywhere else but Revolve. It is so easy to shop on Revolve. It is a joy, it is a pleasure, and I highly recommend. I recently got a few pieces I am obsessed with. First of all, I've just overhauled all my sweaters in my closet. I just feel like I am a big girl now, and I need to get really nice sweaters that don't just fall apart. And so I have a bunch that I wore recently on my trip to LA with Krista. And then I do have this top that I've had for a little bit now, but it is from Revolve. It's this like off the shoulder. It's so cute. I'm obsessed. You can search anything on Revolve and it'll pop up. The search engine is amazing. And what I really, really love, it makes it so easy to shop with curated edits. It's really awesome. I go to the curated edits all the time for every occasion. Recommended for you picks are also amazing based on your style. They get to know you. No endless scrolling, just instant inspo. They have over 1,200 brands and 100,000 styles. Think like high-end labels, emerging designers, and all the trends you love. With sizes from extra, extra small to 4X, new arrivals daily, and fast free shipping and returns makes it easy. Honestly, I'm already eyeing this dress that I want to get for the spring, this like really long, beautiful, flowy dress. I'm just, I have my eyes out there for the future coming months. So you can go to revolve.com/almost30, and then you can use our code A30POD for 15% off your first order. That's A30POD to get 15% off your first order. And this offer is available for a limited time, so take advantage now. Again, that is revolve.com/almost30. The code is A30POD. Okay, so lately I've been thinking a lot about how I want to support my body in this kind of like preconception mode, conception mode, and it's a season of life that I've been through before. I have one son. I'm just really intentional about what I'm putting in my body and how I am making sure I'm getting the nutrients that I need. So there's so much information out there and it can feel overwhelming trying to make the right choices when it comes to your prenatal. One thing I feel really good about is that in my first pregnancy, I took Ritual's Essential Prenatal. Even if you're just in a phase of preparing your body or being intentional intentional about foundational nutrients, it feels like such a supportive place to start. Their clinically backed essential prenatal includes key nutrients like choline, folate, and omega-3, and I love that the ingredients are traceable and thoughtfully sourced. I and a lot of my friends chose Ritual because I really love and trust the level of research behind it. It's the only leading prenatal backed by its own human clinical trial, and it was clinically shown to deliver key nutrients like folate, biotin, and vitamin D. I also appreciate that it uses methylated folate and a patented capsule designed to dissolve in the small intestines, which I found makes it really gentle and easy to take. Especially, I remember that first trimester, it was kind of like a hard thing to wrap my head around that I had to take prenatals, but it made it a lot easier. So compared to other supplements I've tried, it's just been a better overall experience for me. So I highly recommend. Don't settle for less than evidence-based support. Save 25% on your first month of Ritual at ritual.com/almost30. That's ritual.com/almost30 for 25% off your first month.
So going into pregnancy, did you have like a preconceived notion of that a lot of women I think have is like, you can eat for two, or you can eat whatever you want, or, just get through it. You don't have to worry about anything, like the baby will form, it'll be fine. Like, did you have any of those preconceived notions?
Yes, especially when I was puking all night in the first trimester. I had to hang on to that. I don't know if you were nauseous when you were pregnant.
I was very nauseous, but I didn't get sick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the first trimester, like you have to hold on to the fact that your baby's going to be okay, because I couldn't eat an egg for the first 4 months. There was no way. I was just eating pastries.
Yeah.
I was so nauseous I couldn't eat anything but carbs. So I knew all this stuff I was quote unquote supposed to do, but also the reality is that I also had to trust that, yes, my baby would be okay if I couldn't eat all the eggs and the protein and the stuff I needed in the first trimester. But then as soon as my nausea lifted, I felt like, yes, the baby will be okay. And that's the miracle of being a human being. As long as you have a uterus and access to food and water and air, your baby will probably come out okay. That being said, there is something at the margins. There is quite a big range of what you can optimize in your baby's development and health with what you eat. So I had that notion, but I also had all these hundreds of studies that showed me that I actually had more power and more agency than I thought. And very importantly, that the myth of your baby will take what he needs from you is wrong. If you don't eat enough of some things, your baby will not get enough of it. And that really shocked me because it was so contrary to what I was hearing in the zeitgeist of like the pregnancy world, and even contrary to what my doctors were saying. And I don't understand why all this important science is not communicated to moms. So it really shifted what I thought of pregnancy. I realized what I do is important. I have power and responsibility here, and a bit of pressure, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Comes with pressure.
Totally.
Because you're growing a baby, you're growing another human. And through this book, 9 Months That Count Forever, through my work, I hope to create a guide that helps other women navigate the pressure more easily, like it helped me.
I think that's what's so beautiful about your work is it just simplifies things in a way that's like actionable, accessible. Like you read the whole book and you get so much, but you also can very simply understand takeaways. Like even being with you for like a week, I was like, I gotta have eggs. I'm like, I gotta get eggs in my diet. Like I was like 5 eggs a day, get that totally.
But I think like just to that point, like the overwhelming experience of becoming pregnant, of becoming a mom, all the things. I'm curious if that is part of the reason why a lot of this information isn't readily like shared and almost like given as like a requirement from doctors or physicians because it's already so overwhelming. I don't know, like because I'm curious about it, because this type of thing empowers me, it excites me. It's almost like, oh wow, okay, like I can actually make a difference. But I think for some people it overwhelms them.
Let me give you an example, Lindsay.
Yeah.
So one of the 4 pillars in this book has to do with choline, as Krista was saying. So choline is a nutrient that forms your baby's brain cells. It forms their membranes and it forms a connection between the cells. It's very important. 90% of moms are not getting enough choline during pregnancy. 90%. And the American Association of Pediatrics, so a very large, important organism, has published a statement saying failure to provide choline during pregnancy can result in lifelong brain deficits in children. Like, this is not cutting edge. This has been established for decades. We have the AAP saying this loud and clear, but somehow, as you say, it's not making it to the moms. What's going on? We need to change that. And I do believe, personally, at least in my friend group, moms want this information. We don't want to just go by Instagram posts to figure out what to do while we're pregnant. We want the hard science. We want the facts. We want it to be easy. And we want the stuff that's been recommended by health agencies, which is what this book is all about. So there's a failure. There's a breakdown in communication somewhere. I don't really understand why. And I hope this book becomes irrelevant as quickly as possible, because I hope this becomes the standard of what everybody tells a pregnant mom. So choline is one of the main pillars, and it's really exciting. And to get the amount you need, all you have to do is eat 4 eggs a day. I know it sounds like a lot of eggs. You can also eat other stuff to get your choline, but eggs are a wonderful natural source, and choline is in the yolk of the eggs. So if you're nauseous, if you can't eat too much, have 4 egg yolks.
Just drink it.
Just drink it.
Just shoot them.
Well, no, when you're pregnant, you can't do raw eggs and stuff because it's dangerous for all the diseases, etc. So no, Krista, don't drink it. Cook those eggs.
That's my breakfast.
Could you, this is like a niche question, but could you drop the raw egg yolk in like a oatmeal and like let it kind of slowly cook in there? Is that possible? Okay.
For sure.
As long as it's not actually cooking there.
As long as you go.
That's a good one.
Because oatmeal's kind of a bland thing that maybe moms can eat.
Absolutely.
Besides eggs, what are some other good options for choline?
Okay. So if you eat animal foods, it's going to be much, much easier to get your choline, like way easier. So there's a good amount of choline in chicken, in pork, in beef, in fish. Okay. The best source is still eggs. Actually, the best source is liver, animal liver. And one of the reasons that everybody's so choline deficient today is because we don't eat organ meats anymore.
Yeah.
So really, liver is a superfood. That being said, check with your doctor, because there are recommendations of how much liver you can have because of it's high in vitamin A. Yeah. Actually, those studies are being overturned, but regardless, you check with your doctor. Then if you don't eat any animal foods, to get the amount of choline in 1 egg, you would need to eat 2 pounds of soybeans. Wow. To get the amount of choline in one egg, you need 2 pounds of soybeans.
Wow.
So you have to supplement if you're vegan and you don't eat animal foods. So in the book, I talk about all the supplements and stuff. But honestly, throughout this research, I realized, wow, being vegan is not the ideal pregnancy diet, because you need so much money and so much education to make sure you get all the stuff that you need if you don't eat animal foods. This was a big realization for me. It's pretty powerful.
Were you mostly plant-based before?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I saw in my work that people who were vegan sometimes had a harder time with blood sugar management because it's pretty carb heavy naturally. But when I read these studies, I realized, okay, there's something about pregnancy. Being vegan is very difficult when you're pregnant.
Interesting.
You mentioned supplementation. I think we can deep dive in a little bit, but just as far as the choline goes, is a supplement form of choline just as good?
You absorb it less efficiently, but it still has a huge benefit. So you want to supplement if you're not getting choline from whole foods. And there's actually really fascinating clinical trials on choline supplementation. So I'll give you an example. There's a test that scientists use to measure a baby's intelligence, in air quotes. It's a very narrow form of intelligence, but this is one of the tests they do. They put the baby, like under 1 year old, they put the baby on the mom's lap in front of a computer. And then that's it.
They're like, input this Excel. They're like, do this first pivot table.
That's hilarious. No, they flash images on the screen and they measure how quickly the baby reacts to the new image. Okay, so it's a reaction time test, and the reason they use this is because this is correlated to adult IQ. So the faster you react to images on this silly test, the higher your IQ as an adult. That's an association. And so these scientists were like, okay, let's supplement 2 groups of moms with different amounts of choline and see if we can measure a difference in the baby's reaction time. So one group of moms got the minimum, which is 450 milligrams, and the other group got double that. Because they were wondering, if choline forms a baby's brain, maybe more is better. And lo and behold, the high choline group, who was getting double the recommended amount, they had a 10% faster reaction time in the kids on average. So just so people understand this, a very simple supplementation during pregnancy led to a measurable impact on the baby's brain development in the first year of age. So imagine all the stuff that we can't measure, because we're measuring one small thing, but that's not the only thing that's being impacted by choline. Choline forms the parts of the brain that have to do with memory, learning, and attention.
Wow.
Memory, learning, and attention. So what did I do? I called my mom. I was like, Mom, do you have any eggs? In 1992. She said, no, honey, I ate Special K with a lot of sugar on top. I was like, well, now I get it. It all makes sense now.
Honestly, that's why I'm so stupid. Gosh, that's such a good question. I think that's where a lot of people get a little tripped up, where they're like, well, my mom had Special K and sugar and she's fine. And I'm fine.
And I'm fine.
They'd be like, I'm glucose goddess and my mom had Special K and sugar and I'm fine. What do you say to people that kind of say that?
I mean, yeah, I'm fine, but also
you're like, you're like, you only see me this hour.
But also, like, I've had a lot of mental health issues in my life. I had a lot of emotional regulation issues that I had to work through. Could I tell you today, I have the perfect brain. I feel amazing all the time, zero issues. Absolutely not. Maybe if my mom had had more eggs, maybe my brain would feel a bit different today. Maybe it would feel different to be inside my brain. And maybe not, who knows, right? But that's not the point. The point is, if you know this is important and you like eggs and you have access, or you have access to supplements, there's no reason not to do this.
Yes.
And also call your mom and see what's up. You know, it's interesting. And of course, I can't tell you for sure that if you have these eggs, your baby's not going to have any mental health issues. Of course not. But you know, you're optimizing for something that really, truly matters.
So choline was the first of the pillars. What is the second pillar?
It's this little molecule called glucose.
Oh, never heard of it.
So I learned a lot of stuff about glucose that I didn't know.
Wow.
A lot of stuff. As you guys know, most of my work has been about this. And I understood that glucose management when you're an adult is important. You want steady glucose. You don't want big spikes and big dips, because those increase inflammation in the body and they lead to fat gain, right? Your body turns excess glucose into fat. And just to recap, glucose is found in carbs. So things like pasta, rice, potatoes, oats, or things that are sweet, like a chocolate cake, an apple pie, or fruit juice, etc. So when your baby's developing in the womb, he actually needs some glucose for energy. It's very important. And he can't eat carbs on his own, so he depends on you, the mom, to eat carbs. And the glucose goes into your bloodstream, and then shoop, it goes into your baby's bloodstream. I learned something I had no idea about, which is that my bloodstream and my son's bloodstream were actually much more connected than I thought. There's this organ called the placenta, which you grow during pregnancy. And for each pregnancy, you grow a new one. And then you give birth to it, which I didn't know before, which is such a trip. And some people eat their placenta.
Did you not?
Topic. Huh?
That's LA, baby. I'm like, people buy each other's placenta.
Amazing.
They sell it at airports.
That's so funny. And the placenta is not actually a filter. The placenta trusts that whatever's in the mom's bloodstream belongs in the baby's bloodstream. The placenta is not there controlling what goes into the baby's blood and what stays out. Placenta trusts. Yes. So what does this mean? If you have high glucose levels, your baby in the womb will also have high glucose levels. And we see this in studies. So there's a study from Oslo University where they asked 200 moms who were going to have a C-section if they could draw some blood during the procedure. So they drew blood in the mom's arm, and then they drew blood in the umbilical cord after the C-section. And the umbilical cord is attached to the baby's belly button, and that's attached to the placenta. And when you measure blood in the umbilical cord, you're basically measuring the blood in the baby. It's all the same. And they find a perfect correlation. Low healthy glucose levels in the mom, baby has low healthy glucose levels. High glucose levels in the mom, baby has high glucose levels. Some babies have double the glucose levels of other babies. Double. So we're in a situation where your glucose levels are actively influencing your babies throughout the entirety of pregnancy. And when your baby has a glucose spike in the womb, well, he registers the same consequences as we do. Inflammation, and turning that glucose into fat, which is why when a mom has very high glucose levels during pregnancy, and that's called gestational diabetes, the baby is born with more fat mass because that fat is a sign he had to adapt to the high glucose and transform into fat to protect himself. Okay, so this is very interesting stuff. But why does this matter for us? Because it doesn't stop the moment the baby's born. When a baby has been developing in the womb with high glucose levels, he is more likely to get diabetes as an adult. So what's going on in the womb is setting up your baby for life. And in fact, when you have sex and you make a baby, the DNA is set. Your baby's DNA will never, ever change. Half from the mom, half from the dad. However, what's not set is something that's called epigenetics, meaning these tiny little microscopic sort of light switches on your genes that decide which genes are on and which are off. And that's impacted by the food that you eat during pregnancy. So as you're pregnant, you are influencing your baby's epigenetic programming. And high glucose levels lead to epigenetics that lead to higher risk of diabetes as an adult. That was a lot of information.
Wow.
This is really
following.
important. No, this is so, I feel like, but I also, how can we kind of walk moms through? Because we're going to have moments where we're going to have the cookie, we're going to have the things. I guess what realistically did you do or what do you recommend? I mean, all of your hacks, but I think specifically for moms.
Specifically, I think what we should do is we should look at the World Health Organization recommendation, which is limit your amount of sugar per day to 25 grams. I think this is a very good, very reasonable recommendation. Today's surveys show that pregnant moms have about 80 grams of sugar per day, which is more than when they're not pregnant. So most moms eat more sugar during pregnancy than when they're not pregnant because we're told you can eat for two. You're going to gain weight anyway. So like it's the perfect moment in your life to eat whatever you want. So what should we do? I think we should look at this guideline and try to respect it. And so 25 grams of added sugar per day. That means one big glass of orange juice, one cookie, half a chocolate bar. Each contain 25 grams. And in the book, I have a whole list of like what 25 grams look like. It's completely unrealistic to tell a mom, don't eat sugar when you're pregnant. Come on. Like you're nauseous, you feel like crap, you want to eat a cookie. So try to see where that falls in the 25 grams limit and then use my hacks, my glucose hacks, because these allow you to eat sugar in a way that creates a smaller spike and in a way that doesn't exacerbate the cravings and create a craving cycle that so many of us are on. So to recap the hacks, we have savory breakfast, nothing sweet in the morning, and put 4 eggs in that breakfast for the choline.
Make a shashuka.
2 hacks in one, baby. 2 hacks in one.
Get the recipe guides.
Yeah, amazing recipes in the book. So savory breakfast. This really helps, especially if you're nauseous, especially if you're tired. It's really the key. It's going to help you so much. Then when you do want to eat a cookie, a donut, whatever, have it as dessert after your meal, after lunch or after dinner. Try to not have it on an empty stomach or as a snack because this is going to make a smaller spike for you and for your baby in the womb. Everything is connected. When you can, have veggies at the beginning of your meal, veggies first. And I sent you a hat. I sent you a veggies first hat, Krista.
Yes, I did.
Yes, it's
I'm
very
one of
good
the
for you.
few that got a veggies first hat.
I'll give
That's
you one.
so
Lindsay.
true. I wear it all the
VIP
time.
hat. So veggies first. And these are the 3 really important ones. And in the book, I have more hacks. But I know it sounds scary, but I also think this information is really important.
Yeah.
It's really important. And I know what it's like to be pregnant. I know what it's like to want to eat sugar because you feel awful. I know what it's like to survive for 4 months on pastries. So, if you're feeling guilty right now, just picture me eating pastries for 4 months straight, even though I know all this stuff intimately. It's okay. Your baby will be okay. But when you can try to reduce the spike, it's a very good idea.
Well, do we know what's happening in first trimester where moms are so nauseous? Why is that so common?
So it has to do with the hormone that the baby and the placenta produce.
Oh, interesting.
And the theory is that this is helpful because it prevents you from eating stuff that could be
interesting.
poisonous. That's
like
the
raw
theory.
fish or green juice. Yeah, wow,
Because
interesting.
carbs are like safe.
Interesting.
But to be honest, I'm like, okay, biology. Like, I get you're trying to maybe protect me, but come on.
Honestly.
It's pretty extreme.
Well, you're like, okay, biology, I guess I'll eat a croissant again. Your biology's like, no, I don't want you to eat like raw fish.
But why the spectrum of like
We don't know.
yeah, we
Well,
don't know.
the
Okay.
leading theory is that, so we used to think this was caused by a hormone called HCG, which is the hormone
yeah.
that a pregnancy test detects. Now, scientists believe it's another hormone called GDF15, but this is very relevant. And they think that depending on how much GDF15 you had in your body pre-pregnancy, you're going to be more or less sensitive. So if you already had high levels, the big increase during pregnancy is not going to affect you so much. If you had low levels, the big increase is going to be like, whoa, whiplash.
Well, so you could, I
Okay.
wonder if you could test for that.
Probably.
Yeah,
But
wow.
it's not something that I looked into in terms of testing, and it's just not standard.
Yeah.
And today you can't do much. Like if you have extreme nausea, they'll give you a medication.
I'm nervous for that.
Yeah.
Just that my mom said she threw up like every day.
My mom told me she was never nauseous. So here I was thinking I was going to not be nauseous.
I want to talk to her about that.
I'm like, Mom.
I want to check. Sometimes I think they're too far away from it that they forget.
She's like, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
She was like, it
my
was
mom
amazing.
said that too. My mom was like, I loved being pregnant. I threw up every day in first trimester, but the rest of it I loved. I'm like, what about motherhood? What
But
did
it
you love
sucks.
being
There's
my
no two
mom?
ways around it, huh?
Yeah.
And it's tough.
Okay, can we talk about aging for a second? You know, I love to talk about this. I feel like in your 30s and 40s, you start noticing little things. Sleep isn't as deep, or energy isn't as consistent, maybe just some changes in your physical appearance, and you're like, wait, is this just how it goes right now? Healthy aging is something I care deeply, deeply about. I think ever since becoming a parent, I'm like, I want to feel as good as possible for as long as possible. And I've spent a lot of time trying to get ahead of it instead of reacting to it. That's why I am so excited about C15 from Fatty 15. It's the first emerging essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. It was actually discovered by co-founder Dr. Stephanie Van Watson while working with the US Navy to improve the health of older dolphins. That's right, dolphins, which is really incredible. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells and helps slow aging at the cellular level. This is what I'm interested in. Let's get to the cellular level of everything. When our cells don't have enough C15, they can become fragile and age faster, and as many as 1 in 3 people may have lower levels. So I've been taking Fatty 15 consistently, and I love that it feels like I'm supporting my long-term health in a foundational way. It's vegan-friendly, 100% pure C15, and even comes in a gorgeous reusable glass jar. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/almost30 and using the code almost30 at checkout. Again, that's fatty15.com/almost30. Use the code almost30 at checkout. Okay, so I have to share something that has been such a game changer for my mornings especially. Paleo Valley's bone broth protein. I love it in chocolate. I share about it all the time. This is replacing my coffee in the morning. It's just so nourishing, so yummy. If you're like me and you care about gut health, skin, hair, joints, but you also want something that's really clean and easy, this is it. It's made from 100% grass-fed bone broth, and it's so simple to add into your routine. I throw it in with hot water and it's delicious, but I can also add it to my coffee. I add it to smoothies for myself and for my son. It's delicious. What I love is that it's not filled with junk. No weird fillers, no artificial ingredients, just real nourishment that actually supports your body. And it's gentle on digestion, which for me is everything. I found that when I was waking up and just having coffee first thing, it was not the vibe, okay? And this is something that is both gentle, but also giving me a ton of protein. I add 2 scoops to like a nice big mug with hot water, and sometimes I'll add a dash of milk, but you don't need to because there is, I believe, coconut milk powder in this that is just so yummy. It makes it creamy, but it feels like it's one of those small upgrades that really adds up. My younger self would have benefited from something like this so much in my mornings. If you want to try it, head to paleovalley.com/almost30 or use code A30 at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. Again, my favorite is the chocolate, but they have other flavors that are just so delicious. Check it out, paleovalley.com/almost30 or use code A30 at checkout for 15% off.
So you were eating the first trimester. For anyone thinking about first trimester, in the first trimester, you were eating a lot of sugar and carbs more than usual. Did you also follow hacks to support yourself and reduce the spikes?
Yes.
Like, did you also kind of incorporate things that could support it?
Yes. So one thing I did, I tried to have a savory breakfast, but there was no way I could eat a real meal. So what I did is I kept some almonds by my bed. And in the morning, as soon as I woke up, before even sitting up, because sitting up made me nauseous, I would eat some almonds. So that helped a little bit. And adding protein to as many meals or snacks that I could.
That helped me so much.
That helped me too, yeah.
But it wasn't always easy to eat.
And very strong ginger gummies. That helped
that's a
also.
Oh,
good
yeah,
one.
Ginny Gins?
That's a good one.
It's like
No,
the
I used the ones from
chewy ones?
Fullwell.
Oh, interesting.
Very strong.
Okay.
And I was in France and you can only ship them to the US, I think. So I was like, Mom, my sister, please bring me some of your suitcase.
Yeah.
I was doing a full trafficking situation.
Dude, honestly.
Did you incorporate, I just remember, even though I didn't want to do it, when I was able to move my body, even like a walk, just an at-home something, I actually did feel a little bit better. Like
Exercise helps a little bit.
a little bit. But
Yeah.
why would that be?
Probably because it's activating like different circuits in your brain. It's like
Yeah.
maybe like a distraction for your brain.
Oh, interesting.
Which is for birth, for example, that's one of the tools. You use these birth combs, which really, really hurt, and you squeeze them in your hand really hard during a contraction, and it kind of distracts you from the contraction pain.
Interesting.
So if you get to distract your brain. Yeah, I think I remember when I was watching Netflix, I felt less nauseous.
Wow, dude, honestly. Yeah,
Just watch
honestly.
TV all
Just
day.
disassociate. Like, just, yeah.
True.
Hey, that's what I do for my life when I'm not pregnant. Okay, so we're choline, glucose. What's the third?
There's two more.
two more.
Protein. So people think protein, muscle, bodybuilder, blah,
I think
blah.
protein, Khloe Kardashian popcorn. I think,
Yeah.
Kraft mac and cheese with protein. All of the classics.
But actually, many things in your body are proteins. Like, for example, collagen in your skin that keeps your skin nice and supple.
Yeah.
It's a protein. Insulin, the hormone that takes glucose and puts it away, is a protein.
Interesting.
Your immune system is mostly proteins. Like
Wow.
proteins are everything. And by the time your baby's born, if you take away water, he has 50% protein. So when you're pregnant, you got to give that protein to your baby. And so naturally, the amount of protein you eat must increase. But again, this is not something you're told. So in the new studies, they say that in the second and third trimester of pregnancy, you should be at about 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. So just to make that simple, I'm 70 kilos. I think that's like 155 pounds. I don't know. So 70 grams of protein. That looks like what? That looks like 10 eggs. Okay. Which is quite a lot. However, if you incorporate animal foods, like some chicken, some salmon, etc., it really goes by quite fast. So in the book, I have a nice table where you can measure your amount of protein, etc. But it's very important to give your baby enough protein, because what happens if you don't give your baby enough protein? And by the way, today, 75% of moms are not eating enough protein during pregnancy. So what happens? Well, we have some clues from studies done on animals, and they show that when a mom doesn't eat enough protein, her own muscle mass starts to break down, because muscles have a lot of protein in them. Her own muscle mass starts to break down to give her baby the protein in them. So your body has ways to adapt, but it's still...
the butt is gone.
Yeah, the butt is gone. Everything is gone. And then it's hard. Postpartum is not the time where you're going to be like, I'm going to put on some muscle. I've got nothing better to do than hit the gym and eat my shakes. But then it goes even beyond that, because in those animal studies, and we don't know if this is true for humans, but we know in the animals, what happens is those babies are actually born a bit smaller. And they're born with less muscle mass also. It's like there's a little switch in them that says, the world you're going to be born into does not have a lot of protein. So keep your muscles smaller. Prioritize essential organs. Don't grow too big and too strong. And in these babies in the animal studies, we see that their whole lives, even if after birth they eat enough protein, they have less muscle mass than their peers. And this made me think, maybe this is one of the reasons why two people can eat the same amount of protein as adults, go to the gym the same amount. One builds a lot of muscle, the other doesn't. Maybe there's a link to the womb. So protein is key. Fascinating, right?
What were you eating protein-wise? Did you count? Or?
Yeah, I ate a ton of protein. I did a lot of like bowls where it was like I would take a block of ground beef or like that
Literally what you do.
ancestral blend or whatever. I would do salmon. I would do just a bunch of eggs, different fish, and then I would pair it with like veggies and all of that. But yeah, I definitely over-indexed on protein. I think just I'm in this world, so I think I had a lot of that just understanding as a non-pregnant person. And then I was like, wait, I'm growing a human. I should probably
That's very intuitive of you.
keep doing this when I was feeling good enough to do it. My son was, I don't know if this has anything, my son was born 3 weeks early and he was like 7 pounds, 12 ounces. Like, I think he was just, he was ready to rock.
Nice.
And even today, I find that like, he's incredibly strong.
Cool.
Just like, I don't know. Who knows how
You
it
don't know.
translates throughout his life. But I think so far I'm like, oh, that's so interesting in terms of just like the muscle, the strength, all of that. Like
That's amazing.
thus far, yeah.
I realized I made a mistake. I said 70 grams, but actually it's 105 grams because I was 70
1.6.
kilos and it's about 1.5, 1.6 per
interesting.
kilo.
Okay.
So it's more like, what did I say? 10. It's more like 15 eggs a day you need. So it's a lot.
Wow.
It's a lot.
If you-
Eggs are not the highest thing in protein though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they have like 6 grams an egg.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
And then if we're talking about like plant protein compared to animal protein, like do both count? Are we thinking about it the same way?
Of course, both count. And this is true for, adults too.
Right.
Like if you only eat plants, you can get the protein that you need. You just have to make sure that they're complete proteins, right? That's the whole thing about, so proteins, if we go into the detail, they're made by these little beads that are called amino acids, right? And you need to make sure that you're giving your body all the amino acids that your body needs. So good, complete source of protein for vegans is soy. That's a good one. And in my book, I have all this information if you're vegan. But again, it's just easier to incorporate some animal foods in there. I relied quite heavily on protein powder, on whey isolate. I made this snack with like Greek yogurt, 2 scoops of whey, some nice fruit and berries, and that was just 80 grams of protein right there.
Wow.
So there's these hacks that you can find. I relied on this snack almost every day during my pregnancy. I have the recipe in the book. But like find stuff that you like that works, that gives you choline and protein and keeps your blood sugar steady, and just like rock with them. That's what I did. That's what I teach you to do in the book.
Choline, glucose,
Protein. Omega-3s, baby.
omega-3s, baby.
Yeah, omega-3s, baby. That's the technical term.
Yes, omega-3s for the baby. Okay. So I would imagine, and I want you to answer, but I would imagine that you expected glucose, you expected protein. Choline was a surprise. Were those two surprises? Where you were like, huh?
Choline was a big surprise.
Okay.
I did not expect choline. I think I expected omega-3s more because I've
Interesting.
already been supplementing with omega-3s for many years.
Yeah.
I don't think I expected the protein to be so much higher, and I didn't expect choline at all. It was a big, big surprise.
Wow.
So omega-3s, this also builds your baby's brain cells, and omega-3s come from fish. And you want to get the small, fatty, oily fish. So the anchovies, the mackerel, the herring, the sardines, those are really good sources. And to get the bare minimum, you want to get about 2 servings of fish per week. That gives you the bare minimum amount. That being said, a little bit like choline, scientists have wondered, well, what happens if a baby gets more than that? And they did this incredible study where they supplemented some moms with 1.2 grams of omega-3s per day. So that's the equivalent of having fish almost every day, or the equivalent of supplementing, right? And another group with no omega-3s. And then they waited until the kids were 4 years old, and they measured their IQ. And the high omega-3 group had 4 points higher IQ on average. Again, it's measuring something very narrow, IQ, which is a very narrow way to measure intelligence. But they saw a measurable difference. And I think this is really key. There's what science can measure, and then there's everything else that we cannot measure. How does it feel to be in your brain? How's your mental health? How are you experiencing life? How quickly are you thinking? All this stuff. So omega-3s are key. And again, we have crazy statistics, like 75% of moms are not hitting the bare minimum. So what I did fish 2-3 times a week, and I supplemented with 2 grams a day just to be safe. And in the book, I talk about how to choose your omega-3 supplement.
Good.
Because there's lots of different types, and it can be a bit confusing. And the omega-3 that matters the most when you're pregnant is called DHA. There's several types of omega-3s. DHA. And another cool thing, so supplementing with omega-3s reduces the risk of your baby having allergies, eczema, and allergic asthma.
I have all
Significantly.
of those.
You have all of those? Call
I
your
had
mom.
eczema growing up, allergies right now in this moment, and the last thing I bet I have, but I forget what you said. My mom wasn't
allergic
doing
asthma.
that.
So it's when stuff makes you have asthma, like a mold or pet hair.
I wanted to have asthma when I was younger because my friend had an inhaler. And it was, she was really
Inhalers
cool.
were cool.
And I was like, whoa.
Braces were cool. Inhalers
Yeah,
were
like
cool.
braces.
Crutches
I wanted
were
an
cool.
inhaler. I was like, oh.
We can get you one if you want.
Yeah, sure. Birthday coming
I
up.
thought I'd be like faster or something. Because she was really fast. I remember like puffing it once and being like, what do you think? I guess this is kind of a random question, but you know, you've mentioned a lot of statistics that point to the things that the lack of nutrients that women are, or the things that women aren't getting. So things like DHA, choline, et cetera. What are women over-indexing on? What do they have too much of? Like, is there some nutrient or something that they're getting too much of, or that that's being in replaced of that?
Probably sugar, honestly. Probably carbs. And because naturally, like physiologically, that's kind of what you go towards because of society telling you to do that, because of the cravings, because of the nausea. And as I told you, like in that survey, they found that pregnant moms have more sugar during pregnancy than when they're not pregnant. But it's a very good question, Krista. And honestly, I think it's just the carbs and the sugar.
Yeah.
And a lot of the essential stuff, the problem is more that people are not getting enough versus getting too much. And that's why so many prenatal supplements exist, because most moms like need a lot of these molecules that they don't have enough of in their body.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to walk into the supplement arena a little bit because I think it's kind of overwhelming. There's so many supplement companies out there, not that we have to talk about specific, but I just think there's so many options, and you know, we never want to take something that we don't actually need and all the things. And I think a lot of people listening are also currently taking supplements, you know, just on their supplement game. So was in your research and in your own experience, were there any supplements that you stopped taking during pregnancy? And then what did you really focus on taking during pregnancy? And thirdly, just how are you vetting, you know, different brands and just like forms of like an omega, et cetera?
Yeah. So most prenatal supplements have the same stuff, but there are some edge cases which are interesting to talk about. So there's this one supplement called folate, which is probably what the only thing your doctor will tell you to take, because it's so well established that if you're deficient, you have a higher risk of miscarriage. And the form of folate matters. We now know that methylated folate is better at preventing miscarriage than the regular type of folate. So I would look for methylated folate in your supplement. What's that face?
We're mirroring each other.
yeah.
We just crossed the same.
Just cross legs.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Wow, that was crazy.
Whoa.
So methylated folate is key. And then most prenatals don't have omega-3s because omega-3s are very bulky and they're very sensitive to light and heat. So what I did is I had a full prenatal with methylated form of the molecules, and then I took omega-3s on the side. In the third trimester, I also took iron because my iron stores started getting really low, even though I was eating meat every day, etc. And that's another moment where I was like, wow, if I had been eating organ meats, probably this would not have happened. But many moms become iron deficient in the third trimester, so I had to supplement. It was very important. My doctor gave me that. And one thing I stopped, so this is the omega-3 thing. So having a lot of omega-3s in your system has actually shown to reduce the risk of preterm birth, because it reduces inflammation in your body. And sometimes preterm birth is because you have too high of an inflammation in your body, and paf, it leads to early birth and early labor. And so in my last month of pregnancy, I actually stopped the omega-3s because there's a little bit of evidence that shows that if you have too much omega-3s, it can delay birth by a little too long.
Interesting.
So that's the only thing I stopped in the 9th month. And other than that, I just kept going with the same stuff. And also during breastfeeding, because breastfeeding is a moment in life where the demands are even higher than during pregnancy. So, hey, little baby. Little cat. Hi, little cat. So, for example, for choline, you need even more during breastfeeding than during pregnancy.
Wow, I didn't know
Protein
that.
also, 1.9 grams per kilo per
Whoa.
day.
Wow.
Yeah, omega-3s
When
also.
you're breastfeeding.
Yep.
The entire time. So if you're breastfeeding for 3 years, you need that the whole time.
Yep. Well, at some point, your baby starts eating solids. So
Okay.
drinks maybe
Don't
a
have to
little bit less milk.
maintain.
Interesting.
But when I saw this, I was like, what? This makes no sense. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, of course, Jessie, like you're exclusively feeding a baby who's bigger than when he was in your stomach, in your uterus, exclusively with your milk. So it does make sense that as the baby grows, he needs more of this stuff. So yeah, that was a big surprise.
Did you find anything about calcium? I'm curious because I feel like I've heard from especially some second-time mom friends that their bone density has been affected, especially after having 2, and I'm sure it happens after 1 as well. I just haven't been tested. But anything?
Yeah, so I looked into this a lot, and I saw this on many podcasts. I wanted to look in the data. What was weird is that I didn't find any studies that showed that bone density didn't come back later on. So
Interesting.
during pregnancy and postpartum, it does seem to dip, but then it seems to always kind of come back as you stop breastfeeding. So I didn't find any data that says like forever, if you have kids, your forever bone density will be lower.
Okay.
But it makes sense that during pregnancy, your body would pull from what's in your bones for your baby if there's not enough available.
Okay. And what, like, I guess supplementing with calcium.
Yeah, it could
or
be. It
just
could be an option.
eating, drinking.
Eating, drinking calcium-rich foods. So you're honestly, like animal foods are going to be great. Dairy is going to be great. And in terms of calcium and supplements, it's usually there. So, but in my research, it was not one of the standout things that
Got
like
it.
everybody needs to take care of.
Okay.
Versus the 4 pillars in here. Yeah. But naturally, like when you take care of the glucose, the choline, the protein, and the DHA, these are other things that sort of fall into place. Like we didn't talk about B12, we didn't talk about iodine, we didn't talk about calcium, but naturally with those 4 pillars, you kind of get the friends with benefits kind of situation where all those levels also go up.
Got it. This last question on the glucose. So during pregnancy, you have to take a glucose test in some form in America, at least. I chose to do, and my doctor approved it, like an alternative. I think it was
Coconut water?
no, it's an actual packet of like powdered fruit. Like it was all natural, I guess. I'll link it in the show notes. But I guess what are your thoughts on that? I think some people are like averse to drinking it. Some people don't care. Did you prep yourself? Did you have to take it?
I think the test is very late in the game because it's in the 3rd trimester.
Yes.
And by then, like, you've already been pregnant for 6 months. So I think that you should have your glucose levels checked the moment you become pregnant. And you don't, you could check them just with your fasting levels. That's what I'm telling my friends. Like, when you find out you're pregnant, go check your fasting glucose and your fasting insulin levels. This is going to give you a good idea of where you're at. Like, are you very close to getting potentially gestational diabetes? Or are you pretty far away? Do you have to really make an effort to manage those glucose spikes, or are you in the green zone? I did not take the test. The reason for that being that I wore a glucose monitor the whole time I was pregnant. So I saw in real time 24/7 my glucose levels. That was a personal decision. And I spoke to my doctor about it. In France, the test is not always mandatory. So I showed him my glucose levels on my glucose monitor. I showed him all my fasting tests that I was doing every month. And we were like, okay, clearly there's no problem here, so we don't have to do the test. But looking back, I sort of wish I had done it just so I have the data to share with people. But I'm glad that I didn't have to drink that horrible drink.
Yeah.
And something that's interesting on the topic of glucose, if you want to get freaky, as pregnancy progresses, you get bigger glucose spikes for the same food.
Oh, interesting.
Your body keeps glucose in your bloodstream longer.
I wonder why.
As pregnancy progresses, the theory is that it's so that your baby has access to more glucose.
Oh, interesting.
As he's developing. And this made sense back in the day when people didn't have access to a lot of glucose, to keep that glucose in the bloodstream so that the baby could pull from it through the placenta. But today, since most of us are eating a lot of sugar, this can sort of backfire. So if you think, oh, I have to eat sugar and carbs for my baby, just know that a little bit goes a long way. And even at the very end of pregnancy, your baby only needs 70 grams of glucose per day for energy. 70 grams is just a cup and a half of rice.
Whoa.
in the very end of pregnancy when he's the biggest he's going to be, and much
Okay.
less earlier on. So you need to increase your carb intake a little bit, but not by more than a cup and a half of rice per day. Just so you get kind of where you stand. You don't have to eat for two in terms of carbs.
Mm-hmm. Did you do anything particular to prepare for birth as
yeah,
it
girl.
relates to nutrition and all the
Yes.
things? Yeah.
So nutrition, no. There's one belief that says that eating dried dates helps with labor. So the studies are interesting and there seems to be a signal, but the problem with dried dates is that they're incredibly high in sugar. And so 6 dried dates is over the 25 grams of sugar, which is the WHO recommendation. So I chose not to eat any dates. And I learned there are other things I could do to make labor go faster. So the data is very clear. If during labor you feel supported, you're in a calm environment, you have somebody there with you at all times, labor goes faster. The rates of C-section go down. So if you feel secure and safe, things are likely to proceed in an easier fashion. And in France, for example, most people give birth, I mean, honestly, virtually everybody gives birth in a hospital with bright neon lights. The doctor's there, you're on your back, you can't move, people coming in and out of the room. Like the physiologic birth thing is just not prevalent in France. And so because that's what I wanted to do, I had to really look for it. So I met with a bunch of hospitals, found the one I liked. I got a doula. It was a whole thing. And I also had this weird, I think, ancestral fear around medicalized birth.
Yeah.
To the point, Lindsay, where I was crying about it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even pregnant.
Yeah.
You get
I
it?
know
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a journey. That was something else to go through. I'm glad
But you
I'm not
did end
pregnant
up giving
anymore.
birth in a hospital.
I gave birth in a hospital in a tub, so
Amazing.
no drugs. It was so hardcore. When the baby was born, I was like, my husband, I'm like, I'm never doing that again. Never. Remind me for the next kid. No, 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. I'm super glad I did it. Like, it was good. I felt very empowered, but man, was that painful. I'm like, drugs are good.
I know.
Drugs
How
are-
long?
drugs-
How long was labor?
Started at 7 a.m. and baby was born at 11 p.m.
Okay.
And we stayed home for most of that time. That was a key thing also that I learned.
Yeah.
Stay home, stay home, stay home, stay home.
As long as possible.
And by the time we left the house, I was like wailing. Like,
Oh,
yeah, it's hard. It's just hardcore. That's just hardcore.
hardcore.
But it was so cool. It was
Yeah.
so cool. And not to be, I'm just going to share this on this podcast because we're buddies and stuff. and nobody's listening, right? So it's fine.
Got a few listeners.
So the craziest thing that happened is that I was in the tub and I was fully dilated and I could feel that I wanted to push, and so I was pushing. And at some point, I just got a moment of panic. I was like, what's going on? What's happening? So I reached into my vagina with my fingers to feel what was happening. And I felt my son's head, like not very far. And all of a sudden, my energy shifted. I was like, okay, he's coming, everybody. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. He's coming. And everybody was like, are you sure? I was like, don't touch me. And I was like, okay, baby, next contraction. This is it. And I don't know why. I just felt it. And next contraction, I just pushed him all in one go. Boom.
no way.
Yeah, it was cool. I was like on my knees in the tub.
Oh, that's
was
the
cool.
coolest.
That's so cool.
It was crazy. It felt like I was pooping a giant watermelon with like millions of razor blades on it. It's so
Did
hardcore.
pushing feel like a relief though from the contraction? Yeah.
Oh,
my God.
interesting.
Because the contractions are so intense, and when you can't
Does it just feel like a
push-
cramp?
Yeah, but like way worse.
It's just it's just like a different.
It just
it's a
hurts
force.
a lot.
It's a force.
I did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
What happened with the pushing is the contraction is like a minute. So for the first all of the hours minus the last 30 minutes, all the contractions were just pain. And then all of a sudden, the end of the contractions started being pushing. So it'd be like 45 seconds of pain and then no pain and just this massive urge to push. And then they became more and more pushing and less pain until I pushed him out. Crazy.
I know.
so awesome.
You did that too, Lindsay, no?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the hardest thing ever, and also like it's just so cool. Like looking back, obviously in the moment you're like,
Yeah.
you have no words. But did you were you able to maybe in this moment? I don't know if in the moment of postpartum, but
kind of feel the benefits or see the benefits, not only your child, but also for you and how you nourished your body and treated your body during pregnancy in the recovery period?
Yes. Although I would say that postpartum, a lot of my habits just went out the window because I was so tired. I just wanted pasta and chocolate. I was like, Mom, can you make me a chocolate cake? You know, that was the vibe. That was the vibe. So she redeemed herself from the lack of eggs by making me a lot of chocolate cake.
She's like, this I know how to do.
But yeah, I mean, listen, my son is a very healthy, very happy, very sociable, very strong, amazing boy. And so I don't know, right?
Yeah,
I can't
know.
test.
I
I don't know if what I did had an impact or if he would have been like that anyway, but I like to think that it had an impact. I like to think so. And so today, you know, what's interesting is that even after birth, the first 2 years of life are very important for a child's development. And all of these tools and tips also matter. So I make sure that he has an egg every day for the choline that he needs. I make sure, you know, I did breastfeeding for 7 months. Now he's on a formula. I make sure the formula has omega-3s in it. Like I know all this stuff. I make sure I'm not spiking his blood sugar by just giving him fruit juice. Like all these tools still apply to my baby. And then we'll see what happens as he gets older. And that's a whole other chapter I'm excited to look into. But when I look at him, I'm like, I mean, for sure, his brain got all the stuff he needed.
Yeah.
He just seems,
The best.
yeah, his brain seems like
Very on.
on fleek.
Yeah, he's just fully present, fully locked in, fully like there, you know.
I joke with my husband that if I ever have a second baby, I'm going to do none of the things in this book and just kind of
Just
compare.
test.
No, I will do this all over again. I will do this 100% all over again.
Oh, bless.
Yeah, 100% for sure.
Bless.
Like if you know, why not?
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the very clear guidelines I put in place. It felt very reassuring. I was like, I know this is evidence-based. I know most moms are not getting enough. Like I want to get enough. And that's why I wrote this book. Because I feel like it's so cool to have this simple 4-step manual. You do this every day and you know in your heart, okay, this is important stuff that my baby needs and that I'm going to give him through my food. It's a big responsibility. But again, as I said, like, I hope this helps people navigate that responsibility with real information.
Yes. What was something else that really surprised you in your research?
Krista's cat just came in. Up. Hi, Bubba's. The impact of exercise, not just on me, but on my baby during pregnancy.
Interesting.
Okay, so there is this molecule in the brain called BDNF. And she's like our BFF. And the BDNF is important for mental health. And it helps your brain be plastic, meaning that you create new connections, et cetera. It's very important. And that's one of the reasons exercise is good for us is because it produces more BDNF. And so they did these tests on animals, again, on these little mice. And they took pregnant mice, 2 groups, exact same conditions. They lived in the same houses, same diet, same lighting, everything. Except one group had to walk on this tiny little treadmill for 30 minutes a day during pregnancy. And the other group did not walk on this tiny little treadmill for 30 minutes a day. And then they measured the outcomes in the babies. The babies of the exercised moms had 80% fewer anxiety symptoms. And that was the only difference, the exercise. And scientists know that actually when you exercise during pregnancy, your baby's brain also gets higher levels of BDNF. So I thought that was super cool.
That's fascinating.
I also found it super cool to learn that by the time you're born, basically all of your brain cells that process information, your neurons, have been built and they will remain there for life. So the neurons that both of you were born with are still the neurons you have today. Neurons don't get replaced. You have the ones you're born with until they die. From age, alcohol, drugs, accidents, etc. So at birth, when your baby is born, his brain's fundamental structure is in place.
Wow.
That really shocked me. Now, of course, the connections between the brain cells can evolve throughout life and will grow and then they'll get pruned. But the core base of the neurons are there for life, which is why what happens in the womb has such a lasting impact, which is why I called the book 9 Months That Count Forever. Because truly that setup, that early soil that you create. You're basically creating the soil out of which this beautiful tree that is your child is going to grow. The soil co-creates the tree's genetic plan. You're not an oven. You're the soil, and your baby is the tree. And you can take two seeds that are exactly the same. You plant one in a driveway full of gravel and one in a healthy garden. They don't grow up to be the same tree, even though they have the exact same DNA. And that's intuitive. We know that. Well, I want people to understand that's also what's going on during pregnancy.
So good.
So
I'm
good.
so excited for people to
I
have this
know.
book. I hope it's in every doctor's office. I hope it's
Me too.
in the hands of every mom. It's just so empowering. I can't wait for your next one. Are we going to talk about like kids nutrition? Like, what are we going to talk about?
I'm going to take a hard left and talk about like
Nutrition.
Oh no, I'm going to talk about like, I don't know, man. French pottery.
Yeah, on
Like,
it's
hard
time.
left.
Perfect.
We were at a party in LA last night, and they were telling us about pottery where you hug a pot and you get the. Have you
The
seen
imprint.
that?
Have you
do
seen
it.
it?
Imprint pottery. We should do that.
Yeah, we should do
Actually,
it.
I was like, wow, this is so LA. We're talking about imprint pottery. Any last words you want to impart on our audience of women that are looking forward to being a mom or a mom right now?
Honestly, no. I thought I knew a lot, but I don't really have any advice beyond the nutrition advice in
Yeah.
this book.
You're in the you were in the trenches, and now you're mom
Like
of the
this
year.
is my offering.
Yeah.
And take it if it calls you. If it doesn't call you, no problem. It's here. And I'm excited for this book. Like it was tough to write it. I also wrote it when I was pregnant. I finished it postpartum. When the baby was 3 months old, I finished it. It was very intense. So it's been a labor of love. But I did it because I knew it was important. Yeah.
Truly, madly, deeply. Well, we
Thank
love you
you.
so much.
We
We're so
love you.
excited for everyone to get the book.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful to have the book and your other books as well. And we will see you guys on the next one.
Love you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jessie, for coming in. I love you so much. You guys can pre-order the book now, 9 months that count forever, how your pregnancy diet shapes your baby's future. And you can also grab the other books by Jessie, like The Glucose Revolution. You can also pick up her supplement on her website. You can join the recipe club. You can check her out on Instagram at Glucose Goddess.
Thank you all so much for listening. And if you want to follow us elsewhere at Almost 30 Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. We are on video over there. It would mean the world if you subscribed. And you can follow Krista and I on Instagram as well. We're in our DMs. We'd love to chat with you at Lindsay Simsick.
And I'm at It's Krista.
All right, y'all. See you on the next one.
See you soon, guys.
Bye.
Love ya. Bye.